Do we need to constantly avoid the negative in our environment? What is the concept of mental diets, and why does Neville Goddard and other spiritual teachers talk about Neville Goddard's way of mental diet? Or just in a general sense, what does a mental diet actually mean? I'm Rohit. I've been studying law of attraction and manifestation for years now, and I help people expand their awareness and help them get in touch with their higher self so they can create their dream life, that dream reality. So in this video, I wanted to touch upon this concept of mental diet. It is a very popular concept. If you see in the traditional law of attraction circles, mental diet is something which has been talked about, spoken about a lot, and it does have its benefits, but there are some drawbacks to it, the way it is being conveyed to the masses. So that's what I wanted to get into today. The first thing, if you talk about mental diet, is it's mostly about the inner conversations we are having with ourselves. So when Neville talks about mental diet, he's like, when you're doing an imaginal scene, that is the time when you don't at all entertain any kind of negative or conflicting thoughts, any kind of those things. That is when you have to absolutely implement your mental diet and not stray away from that, right? You have to be very, very sure, you have to be certain, and that you do not stray away from your desire, your end goal. When you live in the end, when you're imagining the imaginal act of already having your wish fulfilled in your mind's eye, you do not let any doubts or any conflicting ideas creep in. That's why he recommends us to do it in a state akin to sleep, right? That is when it is the most effective. Now, what about traditional law of attraction? And people talk about mental diets and all that. If you see the traditional law of attraction, more like Esther Hicks and other teachers, Michael Beckwith and other teachers, they encourage us to stay in a positive state as much as possible and avoid the negative as much as possible, right? So this is the difference. Neville doesn't say that we actively have to go out there and not read the newspaper, avoid the news, avoid this and that, avoid looking at the bad things, avoid looking at an accident, avoid hearing the news. Neville does not say that, right? But with traditional law of attraction, a lot of teachers say, don't read the news, don't watch the negativity, don't stop and look at an accident scene, don't do any of those things, because those things are going to take you away from your positive state in which you are the most resourceful into a negative state, which is partly true, because when you're in a positive, happy, uplifted state, you're going to imagine positive, happy, uplifting thoughts. That's what is going to come up, and the more of those you have, you might be driving them into your subconscious, and then those will be manifested into the 3D reality. Now the challenge here is that it is really hard as humans to avoid all these things all the time. I mean, we can try. I haven't personally seen the news for years now. I mostly get my news from my friends. If something really terrible happens, people tell me, right? Or they inform me. That's how I get it. I haven't seen the news for a while. But it's a choice I made, not because of avoiding negativity, because I thought I was really wasting my precious time getting caught up in all these other matters which did not really matter to me. So that's the way I took it. And if some negative news comes in, if I see an accident, I'm not going to look at it. I'm not like that. I'm like, okay, I saw it, I'm not going to engage with it. So be it. If somebody tells me the news, I'm like, okay, that's interesting, or maybe, that's strange, or that's weird, or I'm sorry, or it feels awful or something. I will just make a comment, but I will not engage with it. Look at it, let it go. Look at it, see it, got the information, let it go. Will not engage in those topics related to politics, health, wealth, relationships, could be any of these things. I don't engage in that. I look at it as an information source. I got it, okay, I'm not going to engage with it. For people who get really worked up about these things and get really engaged in these things, yeah, having a mental diet for them will definitely help. But what did Neville say? Neville said he didn't want us to read his quotes or stay in a positive state 24/7, which is practically impossible. I mean, only if you're like a very, very, very high level of consciousness, maybe you can do that. But for most of us, we cannot. So what we have to do is we have to try to stay in a neutral state as possible and not actively avoid all these things, right? I'm not going to look at the news, I'm not going to look at the accident, I'm not going to do that. Not like that. If you see that, if you come across such things, it is okay, and you do not judge it, you do not try to run away or push it away from it. You're right. Just look at it, and okay, it's fine. That has got nothing to do with my imaginal acts. And when you're in your imaginal acts, you do not let these, that is where the concept of mental diet is very important, because you do not let these external circumstances affect your state. You do not let the negative or contrary thoughts come into your mind when you're doing your imaginal acts. That is where the power of mental diet really comes in. Now, trying to do a mental diet throughout the day can be very exhausting, and also it definitely has some benefits to it. Definitely it does, but it is also, I found it kind of very difficult to implement. So if you're gonna do that, I would suggest do a fast, like a mental fast. You don't watch any news, TV, any external news, nothing from 8 a.m. to like 2 p.m. And maybe then later in the day you can watch the news and do whatever, any kind of information source you want. So you can do a mental fast for a short period of time, not a diet where you try to prune and cut and edit everything that comes your way. It is kind of very tiresome if you do that. And also another thing is, we don't react to the external events. We have to let go of this. Okay, some good things matter and some things they don't matter. So that happened in some other country, that's a terrible thing. I wouldn't want that to happen to other people, but to me right now, to my life, to my imaginal act, that does not matter. So I just let it go. I just let it go. I let it slide. So that is my thought process when it comes to this. This is what I want you to do when you're doing your imaginal acts. 2-3 times a day, 3 to 5 minutes a day, 5 to 10 minutes a day. I want you to really implement the mental diet. Just drop all the contrary talks, conflicting thoughts, conflicting ideas, and just focus wholly on what you want. Not on what the market says, not on what people say, not what the economy says, not what your friends say. All those things does not matter when you're doing the imaginal acts, when you're doing those affirmations or subconscious tapes or any of the scripting, writing, whatever you're doing, imagining, visualizing, whatever tool you're using, just drop all the conflicting negative ideas. That is where the concept of mental diet is very important. And as per Neville, we do it, and if negative things come along, it doesn't really matter to us. We just watch it, we get the information we want, we just let it go. And then we repeat the imaginal acts again and again until we feel the feeling of saturation. And once we have that feeling of saturation, that's when you drop the seed. Then you let it go, and then you move on to another imaginal act. So that is how you do it. That's all I wanted to share. Hope you liked this video. Please like and subscribe so more people can reach. This video can reach more people, so more people can get benefit out of this video. And I hope you have a fantastic day. Until then, take care. Cheers.